Okay, now there is one more very important regulatory document that I want to talk about. This is called End User Certificate, or in short, we call it as UC. So, this particular End User Certificate is demanded sometimes by the client, or that is sometimes required by both exporting country government as well as the importing country government, many other intermediaries. So it is a regulatory document, and I will tell you what is the significance and what are the other things that are related with this particular document. An end user certificate is an official document issued by the importer, that means the buyer, or the importing country's government, confirming the final recipient and intended use of the exported goods. This document is primarily required for strategic, sensitive, dual use, or controlled items to prevent their misuse, unauthorized resale, or diversion to unauthorized entities. Now, let us talk about why is an end user certificate required. Governments and regulatory bodies mandate an EUC to ensure national security. That means preventing the sensitive goods from falling into the hands of the unauthorized users, hostile entities, or control of the dual use goods. That means to verify that items with both civilian and military applications, for example, items like advanced electronics or chemicals or aerospace components, these are used for peaceful purposes only, to prevent unauthorized re-exports. That means ensuring that the buyer does not re-export or transfer goods to restricted destinations, and to comply with the international export controls. Many governments, including those of the US, the EU, Japan, and India, have strict regulations regarding certain exports or to meet licensing requirements. Some controlled items require an export license, and an EUC is part of the approval process. Now, let us look at when is an EUC required. An end user certificate is typically required for exporting defense and military equipments like weapons, ammunitions, armored vehicles, or dual use goods like high tech machinery, aircraft components, encryption technology, or nuclear, chemical, and biological materials like radioactive substances, toxic chemicals, sensitive electronics and telecommunication equipment, and certain pharmaceuticals and chemical products. Now, who issues the end user certificate? The buyer, that means the importer, usually provides the EUC, often certified by the importing country's government or defense ministry. It can be from chambers of commerce or industry regulators, or it can be from a relevant licensing authority, for example, in cases of military or strategic items. Now, let us look at what are the key details included in an EUC. In an EUC, details included are like details of the exporter and importer, which means company name, address, contact details, or the description of the goods, which means type, quantity, technical specifications, and also it include final end user's name and address, like a company, or it can be a government agency receiving the goods. Also included are intended use of goods. It can be for civilian purpose, military purpose, research purpose, or for industrial use. Also, it includes known re-export clause, which means a commitment that the buyer will not re-export without approval. Then it also includes government certification and stamps, which means the official approval from the importing country. Now, what is the process of obtaining an EUC? There are certain steps. The first step is exporter requests the EUC from the buyer. The second step is buyer completes the certificate and gets it certified by the relevant government authority. The third step is that exporter submits the EUC to their country's export control agency if required. And the last step is the approval and licensing. If necessary, the exporter secures an export license before shipping. Now, let us look at what happens if there is no EUC. So, if there is no EUC, things can happen like it could be the export license rejection. Many governments require an EUC before issuing an export license. Or even if it is issued, even then, if there is no EUC, it is possible that the license can be rejected. Or it can lead to customs clearance issues. Shipments may be delayed or blocked if the EUC is missing. It could also result into risk of legal violations. Exporting controlled items without an EUC can lead to penalties, fines, or blacklisting. So, in conclusion, we can say that this particular document and user certificate, or EUC, is a crucial document in international trade. It is used for controlled, sensitive, or dual use goods normally, but it may be used in some other situations depending on case to case on and depending on the product and the sector, particular sector. Main purpose of this particular document is to ensure compliance. That's the main thing that you should know about. And it directly or indirectly it safeguards national security and prevents unauthorized use of the goods that are being exported or unauthorized re-export to countries where it should not be re-exported. That's the purpose of this particular document, and it is a very important regulatory document.